Now, what is InDesign? Basically, it is a big desktop publishing. It's like a big version of Microsoft Word. Now, Microsoft Word gets you to a certain level, but never gets you that kind of a pro level. It's quite intuitive. You can teach yourself a bit of it. This is a full course about InDesign. It's easy, and it gets a lot more of detail here. But InDesign is where you kind of where the word finishes and InDesign starts. Now, if I'm working on a design agency or a desktop publisher or a marketing or a place, I need to make a flyer or a one-page little flyer in design. If I need to make a series of business cards in design, if I need to make some corporate stationery in design, magazines, brochures, short ones, long ones, or if I've got a 400-page book which I'm actually producing, InDesign is the place to go. It is by far the most essential tool in kind of desktop publishing world. Some of these products from Adobe are their indirect competitors. They're just as successful, but InDesign does not have any. There is Quark and PageMaker, which are kind of just, but they're really just old versions of InDesign. You can still use those things, and they kind of do a similar kind of job. But in terms of industry basis, you will find InDesign the best kind of software for such works. Now, what is the difference between InDesign and say Quark, Photoshop, Illustrator, PageMaker, and FrameMaker? There are all sorts of other programs out there. Let's just quickly talk about what they or where they all sit. In terms of InDesign, it has some direct competitors. One would be the Microsoft Word, which is one of the amateur program. You're not going to get a design job with it. There's quite of limitations with it. Now, you can do a lot of good stuff with Word, but really it's an entry-level kind of a program. And now you move into InDesign. Now, other competitors to the InDesign would be the main one would be Quark Express. When I was learning, I was doing my degree as a graphic design. We all learned Quark, and I left my degree and to get my first job. InDesign got launched, and all those tools that I started actually got back in Quark as well. And they're making versions, and people are still liking it anyway. It's still a very, very small percentage of work. Pretty much any kind of work is done in InDesign. Some legacy file you stumble across occasionally are done in Quark, but we don't use Quark very much anymore. And it's pretty much been obsolete since like 10 years. It's a long time dead. PaintMaker is made by Adobe as well, and you're probably never going to touch it unless you are going for really big things. Now, say put together a scientific document about some sort of miracle treatment, medical medicine that we are making, you might open PageMaker because it allows you many people to work on one document, and it updates it and tracks it. And if I was going to build a nuclear reactor, I probably use a document how it's made, and it's been maintained via PageMaker. It's a big old program, so not so much people use that one. Now, it's definitely not for creative design. Now, with respect to InDesign, other products that might go in hand with InDesign is Photoshop and Illustrator. Generally, designers will know Photoshop, Illustrator, and InDesign all together. Now, we'll just separate out. Photoshop is nice, clear, and different. InDesign is a layout program. You bring in images, text, and you combine them with amazing designs. Photoshop, you can open photographs and you can manipulate them, make them better, change them, fix them, mess them up. And when you're finished with it, you can bring it into something like InDesign. And if I was making a flyer, if it's a one-page flyer, then I must start making it in Photoshop, and you can probably get away with it. It would be fine, but you can make it work. But that would be Photoshop using for what's not what meant for. You can just do really basic stuff like that. But as soon as you have to make multiple pages, Photoshop doesn't work. You can do multiple pages in Photoshop. Also, you cannot have master pages, headers, or footers, and it doesn't deal with type very well because it's mainly a photo editing program. Now, that's where Photoshop gets used. Illustrator is the one that is reasonably close to design. You can do a lot of same things. Illustrator is mainly for people illustrating, but what we use for mainly InDesign the field, you make more logo work, making icons. It's really kind of a generic geared program. All the tool structure is around doing those things. But if you were to make a one-page flyer, it would make great in Illustrator or InDesign, but it wouldn't really matter. We have to use both programs. Open check for once open. Look at both of them. They don't really doesn't really matter. Where InDesign gets used, if it's have to be like going to be a monthly newsletter or a flyer, then there are some tools in InDesign that may help the flow of doing monthly stuff. The other thing for InDesign is multiple pages. Illustrator can do it. You can have multiple artboards, but if you got a really heavy document, then you can start getting past 4, 5 or 5 pages. You'll find Illustrator starts guiding to fault. To get 10 to 20 pages of images and text is kind of hard in Illustrator. It starts to struggle, whereas InDesign can have 400 pages document and can fly through the workflow. It is easier to deal with a lot of pages. Same thing with InDesign. You can do same with basic stuff in Illustrator. Here there's a pen tool. You can build basic shapes. You can make icons, import them. You can do that in InDesign. There's a bit of crossover between these two. If you've got to separate them out, Illustrator is for doing things like branding, logos, illustrations, and InDesign is all about desktop publishing. And that helps with other softwares, which you should be learning as well. You can start with InDesign, and probably next stop would be Photoshop, unless you want to start making your own infographics and those sort of things. Then you can look at Illustrator. Alright, so that's a short introduction about InDesign and for what InDesign said in the world of InDesign.